So you know what's so interesting about doing karaoke?
Hmm.
So at bars where you can't hear people sing, 15 seconds into my songs, the DJ's always running back to his deck, bringing the volume down. So guess what?
Are you saying that you have a loud voice
I think I do.
with the little bits of profanity that you slip into the
No,
lyrics?
no, no,
Nothing
no,
like that at all.
no, not at all. I don't do that ever. Stop that. So this is another chic and artistic episode of the SPS podcast. I am, or at least have been, Sean Patrick Sullivan. You are currently Gen X,
Mhm.
also known as Jennifer Frankel.
Yes.
Do you spell Jennifer with one N or two?
I do one N, but
No, my best friend in university did too.
well, see, it became a thing. Like,
Did it?
yeah, it originally like everyone spelled Jen with one N. It was just kind of natural that when you shorten something, you don't use the double letter that's in the middle of the word, which I think is just kind of a standard English rule all over the place. But at some point in the 90s or 2000s, Jen with two N's took off.
Well,
Everybody did that.
she's my age, so she had it before that. Parents were very trendy. Her mother defended the manufacturer of those silicone breast implants. Not defended. Her mother was a doctor and she was the medical expert in the story. Remember, like in the late 80s, silicone breast implants were outlawed. I don't know if they're back, but they were outlawed because they were. Yes.
Yeah.
So she testified that there's definitely something going on with these women. Like she wasn't denying that, but it wasn't leakage. And I'm going to hypothesize now. I don't want to speak for this woman who I've only met once.
Are you a shell for big silicon?
Isn't silicone always big? Um, you know what? You know what? I bet they're still outlawed. And that's the reason we went from silicone breast implants to silicone bakeware. They had to do no, but no, she didn't deny that there was something
This
going on
muffin
with.
slides right off my
Yeah,
boob.
she didn't say my boobs baked perfectly. She acknowledged that something was going on, but she thought that it was something else. So anyway,
Interesting.
and I'd met her and she seemed fierce. She occurred to me as as a person with a tremendous amount of integrity. And she did not occur to be the type of person who does things going after money.
Right.
And also, we know so much more now about exogenins and the way that the body can reject them than we did before. Who knows?
Well, but we're going to know so much less in the future
Why?
because there's a deliberate rejection of the concept of science in your country right now.
Where?
Well, you must know this.
Oh God, this is going to be one of those times where you tell me something terrible and I think it's fantastic.
No, I mean, the United States is rejecting science as a government. The American government is rejecting science in every possible way.
I don't see that at all.
You don't see that?
So here's the thing. In university, I was a huge fan of this book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions
Hmm.
by Thomas Kuhn. And it talked about how there's this very weird codependent relationship between science and religion. And what it says is that throughout the history of humanity, science reaches a point science reaches a point where scientists stop doing science, and without realizing or admitting it, they start doing religion, coming up with concepts, for example, like string theory. And so what happens is it's not useful to the world. So there tends to be an anti-scientific, pro-religious counterswing. And then what happens 50, 100, 200 years later is that actually restores science, and that this has been the cycle throughout.
Wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, but I don't think that's what's happening here. I think that what you've got is a government that rejects science on religious grounds, but mostly on grounds of idiocy. I know. I think it's so sad. I care for rapists. He is a rapist.
He's not
He's
a rapist.
adjudicated as a rapist, and there's no way in the world that as many women that have come forward. I mean, there is no way that he is innocent of any of the charges that have been levied against him.
Well, we've seen in the Harvey Weinstein case that you can have a lot of people testifying against you and you could still be innocent.
Weinstein is not innocent.
Well, have you seen the interview with him? Have you seen the evidence that we weren't allowed to see for a while?
Yeah. He's guilty of a lot of things.
Yeah, he's guilty of being an asshole
and of sexually assaulting women.
But on the other hand,
But you can't really start a sentence with guilty of sexually assaulting women, but
yes, you can.
it's a little bit hard.
Yes, you can, because the one woman whose testimony put him in jail, there's this long record of her speaking to him adorably, enthusiastically, and
That's actually right in keeping with sexual assault.
but it's not. Here's the thing: how can it be? How can you call that? But if you call that, wow, we just started right in.
No, but psychologically, you have to understand that there's a grooming process that goes on with men who sexually assault women. There's a power differential. You can't deny there's a power differential between her and him.
No, absolutely. But
And there's a lot of training that women go through to make us absolutely denying our own feelings
okay,
on being
I
assaulted right
abs-
up until and past the time we've been assaulted,
I
and then to deny the fact we've been assaulted
I
and to continue to fawn on the person that
I
assaulted us.
absolutely get that.
These are all
But I have two
very
counterpoints. The first one is sometimes people, men and women, are genuinely okay with something, and then something happens to them psychologically, or there's a professional opportunity to be gotten out of it, and all of a sudden they cry wolf.
There's also
Sometimes.
people who suffer for years because something's been done to them that they thought was fine.
Absolutely. But the other thing is, I don't see logically how you can proposition someone with sex and have that person respond positively and to receive consent and to not.
Do you think he always received consent? 99% of the stories I haven't heard a single story where he received consent in any way that I recognize consent. And most of it was egregiously on the other side.
Verbal consent? No, not always, not most of the time. But you know what? We have so much to talk about today.
Better things to talk about too.
Okay.
Because because this is an issue that continues because like specifically men refuse to admit that there's any sort of power differential between men and women.
So here's the thing. I love women, and I think that culturally, in general, women are more interesting than men right now. I've been saying that for 5 years.
I think we always have been.
No, no, not always.
Not always.
Not always. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you've been programmed to not do it. That's the next revolution in feminism.
It's a great idea.
So many problems.
But the problem with the way that feminism operates is that the onus should be on somebody other than us. It's like you can't
That's not true.
You can't put the onus on somebody who's being prejudiced against to stop the prejudice from
So
happening.
there's so much conversation right now about ancestral trauma, the long-lasting effects of slavery. So here's the thing: you're not going to like this, but you're going to let me say it.
Yeah, okay. I tend to.
Yes, you do. You're wonderful at that. You know what? We're a role model for the rest of society.
We do not agree on anything.
And we're going to go to karaoke and we're going to do an open mic together. All right. So here's the thing. I actually believe that it is not the responsibility. So if you've been institutionally injured,
right,
my belief is that process of enslavement, injury, degradation, oppression, and so forth is part of an evolutionary process. And the way that it works at its absolute best is that because human beings can be disgusting, a class of people get treated badly. And that group, in the best of all possible worlds, decides that they're not going to tolerate it anymore. And even though, by some accounts, they shouldn't have to, they do it anyway. And then it causes that group, the one that's accepting responsibility for deprogramming itself en masse, that actually gives them a superior edge over their former oppressor. And then culture starts to shift in a different way. So I believe that it's in the interest of everyone, gay people, women, Black people, Jews, everything. It's really best to not expect anything from anyone else, to have that revolution internally and to use it as a superpower.
I think that's fine if you're a strong person.
Well, we need more strong people.
Type of person. But feminism wasn't intentional. It's not. Feminism's main purpose is not to help women who can already help themselves.
Well, it was started by an awful lot of women who could already help themselves.
Who are trying to help other people. Like I think I've told you, I have not experienced, I'm just kicking my microphone with my fingers. I'm sure that sounded great.
That better not ruin
the take. I think I told you that I'm one of the very lucky women who's never been sexually assaulted. I've been harassed. I've had manipulation. I've had all sorts of other things done to me, but I have never been sexually
Well, that's because
assaulted.
You look like you could punch someone in the face.
Quite possibly. But I don't take my feminism as a sign that I'm not a feminist because I can help myself. I'm a feminist because other people can't help themselves. And if we're not a society that cares about the people who can't help themselves, then we're garbage.
And you know me, I'm a strong opponent of helpfulness. So can we get to so that we have so many agenda items, and I have to start by telling you that I have really, really, really bad news.
Oh no.
I have such bad news.
We're already not going to be able to get to all the questions?
No, it's not that.
Oh, okay.
No.
What is it?
No, I have everything mapped out perfectly. I am a stellar producer. So My bad news is that despite me writing an entirely inappropriate and disrespectful response to the Canada Border Service's attempt to deport me,
You're not going to send it to them?
no, I sent it. I sent it
Oh,
9 months ago, and I hadn't heard from them, so I thought it was a done deal. But I got this in the mail yesterday. No, the day before yesterday.
Okay.
And I'm so upset because the Canada Border Services Agency decided not to deport me. That was going to be like my number one career move. I know.
Oh, you.
Okay, so there's this comedian in Malta who I really love.
Trump wants everybody else to do, just self-deport.
I wanted them. I wanted the Canadian government. I wanted the Canadian
self-deportation.
I love it. I wanted the Canadian government to pay for my first class plane ticket. All right, let me do this too. This is with reference to your previous By the way, I want you to know that I complain about Canada a lot, but one of the things that I love about Canada is that all of the federal documentation, like Canada has an enormous and amongst countries one of the best websites.
Okay.
And not just because the agency I used to work for helped them build it. Everything's really well written, like really, really well written. So listen to this. This is with reference to your previous interview with an officer of this department concerning your criminal convictions and your status in Canada. By the way, the conversation was, please deport me. The circumstances of your case have been carefully considered, and it has been decided that no further action will be taken by the department at this time. You must understand, however, and they put commas before and after, however, that this decision may be reviewed should we become aware of any further violations of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act.
So you've gotten out.
If such a review occurs, action may be initiated, which could result. I based on the fact that they're letting me stay in the country, I think I could mow down any parade in Toronto with a camper van and still be allowed in. I just don't understand it. If such a review occurs, action may be initiated, which could result in your being ordered deported from Canada. Now, here's the best sentence of all. It's so passive aggressive. It's really well written. We trust that you understand the gravity of this matter and hope that we will not have occasion to contact you again in relation to any further violations of the Immigration and Refugee Act. I wish I knew French because the only thing that would give me more pleasure would be to read it in French. So yeah, I'm not being deported. It is. Do you know French? Oh my God.
No, see, I'm one of these people that's
I'd be so honored.
I've got a decent French accent. I can do a bit of either, but mostly more of a Parisian, I would say.
Okay, good.
Where is this?
It's on the other side.
Et que nous aurons pas à communiquer à nouveau avec vous concernant d'autres transgressions. Oh, that's great. De la loi immigration.
I want you to keep talking to the camera about anything you want. I have to let somebody in.
Just while Sean's out. He's a terrible person. Awful, terrible person who likes terrible people who do terrible things. This is the place, the only real.
Hey, okay, you got it.
Otherwise, we're very simpatico in a lot of ways. But I'm still trying to convince him that the idea of compassion and sympathy and empathy are worthwhile human emotions.
Yes.
He's going to hate me when he hears this.
Don't be, it's fine.
He's probably going to love it. It's just very important for you to understand that that's where Sean and I have our greatest differences. Thank you. This has been a PSA.
Do you make fun of me behind my back?
No.
I prefer when you make fun of me to my face.
No, I didn't make fun of you. I just said scandalous, terrible things about your viewpoints on the world and humanity and just little things like that.
I love you, Jen.
You're welcome. You would hate it though if there was nothing in that little segment when you went back to watch it. You would hate it if it was just
You know what? Do you know that every single podcast has had an on-camera interruption?
Nice.
Actually, so
it's my second or third. So like on-camera interruption. I mean, so I've decided I'm going to actually use them instead of just
absolutely hijacking my podcast. But you're a co-host; it's not hijacking. But yesterday I did an outdoor episode in the park with Caleb the Tall, and there's this woman who he's friends with. I've had 2 conversations with her at karaoke. I don't really know her. She's apparently a store owner. She has a lot of charisma. She's gorgeous. And I would want to give her an opportunity. So I wanted her on the show.
Mooncraft
I wanted her on the show. Maybe. Adriana?
Yeah, Adriana. Yeah. Okay,
so guess what?
Yeah.
So she passes by. She doesn't know that we're recording. So she starts talking to Caleb. And I said, all right. I'm going to go with this. And I was like, come over here. And I invited her on the podcast and stuff. And I think she got fed up with me and walked away. But anyway, she's adorable.
She definitely knows her own mind too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. So FYI, we're going to talk about this off camera. We may or may not. Oh, I completely forgot. I love your hair.
Thank you.
It looks great on camera.
Thank you.
Um,
So this is another find from a free site in Hamilton.
that was free.
Yeah.
Did you ever wonder who wore that before you?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, I totally do. I
Okay.
totally do. And under what circumstances? Yeah, of course. Of course. And if somebody's going to actually see the wig, realize that they gave it away for free in Hamilton and like write in, "Hi, I miss you, wig." Like this nice little, "Hello, my pretty wig. I wish I'd never gotten rid of you.
Well, especially
I'm
the
glad
way
to see you went to a good home."
especially that you wear it so beautifully. So we have to talk off camera about whether or not we're going to be able to fit in an episode next week, or perhaps
Right.
when I come
Right,
back,
right, right.
because I'm going to New York.
I hear this.
Yes.
And you're sure you're going to be able to come back and everything?
Yes, absolutely. I got my American passport renewed
Fantastic.
and everything. My life is swimming along so much more easily than it ever has before.
What could your government do to you that would make you actually not like Trump anymore? Is there anything that they could do?
I was almost about to start a new Democratic Party over the embedditude with Elon Musk and other technocrats.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I viewed that as extremely toxic. So here's the thing: a lot of people will talk about
Say
Trump.
similarly toxic, but in a different way.
No, I think it's really bad, and I was very upset because, and I'm actually glad that there was this blowout that revealed that Elon Musk is either
Petulant, petty,
that he's a petty high school girl.
Yeah.
And that he's unstable and that he doesn't have foresight, because I think that this is, so here's the thing. I take this attitude of no matter how terrible it is for myself or the world, whether the incident is personal or global, I always say this is going to work out for the best. And it may not be true, but tricking myself into that really works, because
that makes a sense of a lot of things
Yeah.
you said to me over
I
the
was-
small amount of time I've known you.
Yeah, I was so concerned about, okay, so there's all these accusations of fascism, which I don't think are true. But then when that happened, I was like, Christ, maybe everyone's right. This outburst of petulance really, I think, saved America from being taken over by technocrats, because I view them as spineless, opportunistic,
Oh yeah.
and they're certainly blessed with the mechanistic intelligence to create wonderful
They're so incredibly
technologies.
undereducated in every other form.
But what
of
the United
humanity.
States is truly suffering from is there's a lack of input from artists.
You're not going to get that under Trump.
Look, scientists are very good at.
You've noticed artists don't like Trump, even if he wants to
A
encourage
lot of
them.
stand-up comedians do.
Yeah, some, but I mean, you're down to basically Kid Rock and a couple of other musicians that will actually stand him.
But a lot of people lie. A lot of people lie, especially in
Like Trump.
Yeah, they do like him.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
So I don't want to talk about hip hop. It's such a depressing subject. Now tonight is really a glorious night, because you are one of the organizers of tonight's Writers Open Mic at Laidlaw United Memorial Church.
Yes.
So
it's a hybrid open mic. Like it's
what is it today?
Well, it's because no, it's actually this open mic is it's partially literary, but it's just open to writers, but that runs the gamut of any kind of writer.
Yeah. Including songwriters.
Because my co-host Anya Mia is actually a musician. So she actually used to have the really wonderful open mic at the Casbah. I think it was called the Singer-Songwriters Circle, I think. Yeah, so she would do us like Saturday afternoon, and after Casbah closed down, that's when Casbah closed down, that's when we teamed up. To
I went to the last show at okay, so I went to Casbah the week before it closed.
Oh, okay.
And I also went there 3 months earlier. And when I went there for the first time 3 months earlier, the first thing that I was told when I walked in is this place is shutting down. So
it took 3 months to get there. But
so it's my favorite. So here's the thing: of all of the places that I've participated in or watched a show in downtown Hamilton, it's my favorite venue. So that was a real happy experience.
Now, were you in the main room, or were you in the little bar?
I thought that when you walk in, that's all there is.
There's two rooms actually. There's the big room that has a little bit of a stage, and then there's another room that's just like a bar with tables and.
No.
Okay. Kind of, but they were kind of separate. Like I think that they might have been more integrated earlier, but there was a change of ownership at some point, and the restaurant at the front used to have food, and it changed a lot over the last year or so it was open. And I honestly had only been there just for Anya's show. I hadn't done anything else. So until I actually I think it was like just a few weeks before they closed entirely. I went to the Risky Business 80s night. Yeah. Which was in the other space. So I had never been in that space until like just before it closed.
Damn it, I missed out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a great place. A really sad loss.
But the open mics here are of such high quality. I remember
Yeah.
because stand-up comedy open mics, like not only are most of the people, and I put myself
It's
in this
a
category.
masturbation joke. Really.
Well, yeah, and it's a lot of like I watch porn and I smoke pot and I
Yeah.
don't have sex with anyone, and it's slashed my wrist.
Well,
But
it's just like if really you're just doing stand-up comedy to get laid, then I guess I kind of
no,
understand it.
no, that's not the mechanism.
But
That's not the
that's
mechanism.
not
So
the
a lot of
mechanism.
so I've no so of all the artists that I've observed, the greatest difference in approach between men and women that I've ever seen is in stand up.
Oh, that's cool.
My experience is
Yeah.
that women are a lot easier to collaborate with. They're always on time. Now, mind you, this is just my experience. They're always on time. They actually ask questions like,
They
what,
treat it professionally.
what should I, yeah. And I think that's because when a woman does comedy, she really wants to do comedy. She's not doing it to make friends. But a lot of men in this town, and I don't know if this is how it is everywhere, but a lot of men in this town are suffering from the ancestral trauma of having men's spaces taken from them, the Moose Lodge, the sports team, etc., the single sex gym.
CNN. I was sorry. Yeah.
It manifests as self-delusion that you want to do this for a career, but as evidenced by the total lack of a social media presence, the total lack of a podcast, the total lack of anything that would actually make you happen as a comedian. The truth is that you really just want to hang out with your friends.
That makes sense.
And what makes it even more disgusting and sad is that obviously I'm not doing stand-up in this town anymore. New Jersey will suffer a far worse fate because I'll be performing there and in New York. What I don't understand is that you go to an open comedy night, there are these people who like, if you're one of these, they're like, okay, these are my buddies and we get to hang out. But then when someone goes up on stage, their buddies talk at full volume while they're trying to perform, don't pay attention to them and don't applaud because unlike the true fraternity of the Masons, the Moose Lodge, the Elks, etc., they secretly hate each other.
You think that's not true of the Moose Lodge that's good. That's nice to know that Masons actually like each other.
From what I know about Masonry,
I thought it was far more about who can get you ahead in business. But that's not going to happen when you're at a stand-up comedy show. Nobody is going to help you get ahead in your business. It's the opposite.
That's all I did as a stand-up comedian. I produced shows so that the people who I thought were the most talented could get more visibility.
Right.
I hosted shows because I wanted the opportunity. I'm a much better host than I am.
Actually treating it like it was something, like it was a profession. I know.
Even having fun.
I know.
I'm a shameless careerist.
The same way about. I think it's one of the reasons we do get along.
Yeah, you're very proactive in everything that you do. Now, let's talk about something that you do.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm getting really good at these transitions.
That was fantastic.
So you
talk enough about the open mic. We didn't actually say when it is or anything.
Okay, it is tonight. It's tonight. It won't be.
It won't be point to this. But
I'm not even posting this until.
It's usually the first or second Thursday of the month at Laidlaw.
But
it's called Rhyme, Rhythm, and Reasons.
Yes.
You can find it.
And it's free. And mocktails are served.
Mocktails
at ridiculously low prices.
And absolutely delicious coffee.
Okay, so
here's
the thing that kills me. This church not only has the greatest percolated coffee in the city, and not only do they have like these like treats to eat and like but I guess I've been out of the religious loop for so long that like it just kills me that they have a little POS system and like it's a card reader.
Yeah,
it's so high tech.
Yeah.
And then like off to the other side there's like the television that's like promoting.
Oh yeah. One on either side, like so you're both
going to a bar and saying happy hour Wednesday, happy hour Thursday,
and not to mention like the fantastic sound system and the full lighting board. Like it's a pretty swanky.
So when they open up the podcasting and performance studio here, it's just going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, it'll be amazing.
So, but the thing that I want to say about your open mics that I really appreciate is that in contrast to the comedy open mics that I've been to, which were so often a disappointment.
Right.
And
both in the material and in the behavior of the audience.
Just remember, as a comedian, half the time. So I've never did a good stand-up set. I did one good stand-up set in my life. I felt something enter me and I had 7 minutes. I went on for 17 minutes and I wasn't pulled off because I was doing so well. But I literally did not know. I had no control over my mouth. It was like I was inhabited by something. It was glorious. But otherwise, my career has
You've
been.
got like 5 minutes of being 7 minutes of being bring Robin Williams, I guess.
Yes,
Fantastic.
yes. So, but other than that, my experience is so half the time I try something that's incredibly avant-garde or provocative and I fail and I know that I'm failing 1 minute in from the reaction of the audience. And then I start to get flop sweat and like getting off the stage is really awkward. And then I'll usually make it worse by saying something as I'm walking off, like, well, I guess that didn't work. Maybe next time. And then the other half of the time, the audience loves me, but it's not because I'm funny. It's because I'm charismatic.
Right.
Which that's not a boast.
No, no, I understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it makes me feel
Yeah.
really inferior because I'm coasting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's what I think it's what pretty people should feel all the time.
I'm a pretty person.
Well, you're pretty enough.
We're all
Yeah.
okay.
But no, but I just in general, I think pretty people should feel like they have to work a little bit harder to actually overcome the instant charisma effect.
Yes. You're not going to believe this. I just got a Twitter update
Oh yeah.
about the Department of Health and Human
Oh,
Services.
seriously?
So we'll find out later what it was.
Oh dear.
Okay.
Oh dear.
What
Oh,
I
dear.
want, the reason I'm saying all of this is to counterpoint the way that your open mics are, because the level of professionalism, the fact that people come from other cities.
Yeah.
And okay, so this was so I am strange. I'm very New York in that I like being intimidated by the people around me. I want to develop body dysmorphia as a result of being surrounded by muscular men in a gym. I love feeling bad about myself. I love being motivated by guilt.
This all makes
fear.
this all tracks.
Yeah. And I mean, when you're Catholic and Jewish, do you have any other choice?
Feel guilty about being the chosen one.
Chosen to have a life that's a real pain in the ass. How could I put this? I was intimidated 5 minutes into the open mic, the first one that I went to, and at the same time, quite relieved and grateful because the quality of the performer was so high. Jen, do you remember the one that I went to, the first one that I went to? 3 people were reading from their first novel
Yep.
that had already been published.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, I feel bad about myself. I like this.
I'm glad. I'm so happy that we could instill in you that amount of inferiority.
I love that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anything else you want to say about the open mic?
No, just that I'm really grateful to be able to be doing it. And a great place to do it.
Now so given your personality, your politics, etc., I was absolutely shocked and delighted to find out that you went to a pro wrestling show. Like, are you a pro wrestling lady? Was this a first time for you? What's going on?
It was my second live show. Don't follow wrestling. My roommate does. My roommate he's been watching WWE since he was little. He's watched stuff back to the classic Hulk Hogan days. I've always been tangentially aware of wrestling. I've always been aware. Do you know what? I didn't even know about her.
You know she was a manager?
Recently. No. And I didn't realize that the guy in Girls Just Want to Have Fun, her dad is actually a pro wrestler.
Yes.
I didn't know anything about this. I was just sort of aware of it as a sport that's more spectacle than anything else. And I knew it would be fun, but I also knew that it was too much of a commitment. It's like watching a soap opera, right? Like
it's exactly
it's the same level of intensity
and
yeah. And more for women as well. Like,
I'm talking about in the Hulk Hogan days.
Definitely in the Hulk Hogan days. Yeah. And it's one of those things that women would go to with their men.
Yes.
More than like interested in their own. But I could not believe the scale of just the athleticism of the performers. It's just incredible.
Isn't it weird that the fakest of all professional sports features the most muscular, toughest, and most acrobatic athletes?
It's incredible.
Because here's the thing. So the 3 sports that
you're never going to get a person who's wrestling, like taking a knee because he got kicked. I mean, it's not soccer. It's not soccer, making fun of people for falling down and writhing on the ground.
So the 3 types of athletes that I'm most impressed by, like when I look at them, I'm like, are you a superhero? I can't believe your body did that. Are the 3 sports that most people don't think of as sports. Roller derby.
Right.
The sort that's, the sort that's practiced by these like,
even the
175-pound, 6'4" muscle men.
Yeah.
Who you can't believe with how bulky their bodies are, how acrobatic they could be. Professional cheerleading.
Right.
Or like flipping people into the air.
Yeah. Making it look effortless.
And pro wrestling, like Okay, so when I look at soccer, I mean, I'm not good at sports, but when I look at like soccer and baseball and football, because I went to PE class and I did those things at least once, it strikes me as being in the realm of reality.
Yeah.
But my CGI detectors go off for those three sports.
Yeah, yeah. But they're
So what's
it's
it like live?
but it's like
I've never been.
just in terms of what you're saying though, it's the same with your when you're watching a movie. You're watching people doing things that are like way heightened past reality,
Yeah.
but they have to be so good at making them look natural.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of feeling.
Which doesn't always work.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not. But there's definitely that level of being able to not just perform, but to make it look like you're not performing.
Yeah.
And that takes, I mean, nobody's asking a professional athlete to do that in most sports. They're not asking them to make it look like it's the easiest thing in the world. And they're not asking them to layer a plot on top of it either. No, live is incredible. My friend Eugene actually is, he's a ring level cameraman. So he gets free tickets to the event sometimes. He actually gave us tickets to go to see it in, Parkdale Hall in Toronto. So that was my first actual live experience. And we got to see this guy called, goes by Jack Cartwheel because he like literally does like round-offs and backflips in the ring onto other people.
Okay.
Like just an incredible level of athleticism and aerobic ability. Like just, and he's actually moved up into the bush leagues of the actual WWE now. So he's been like, we knew we were seeing something special even when we saw him for the first time.
Yes.
There's a lot of, I'm really enjoying the fact that there's a huge move now to integrate the genders too, so that there's actually women and men fighting together.
But is that fair to the women?
I think it's totally fair. I mean, these women are incredibly fit, incredibly tough.
Okay.
And if a woman wants to be, it's like a woman who wants to be a comedian, right? She definitely really wants to be there.
That's true.
Yeah, and I don't think you're going to find that there's a natural supremacy of men's physique over women's when it comes to people who are really super fit. Like as soon as you get into that level of elite athlete that they are, you're talking very small differences.
Oh, I disagree. However, you bring up a really interesting point, and I will agree that due to the unique nature of
Hmm.
professional wrestling, any area where a woman is physically weaker, her reflexes, size,
That's the thing, right? But you get guys who are the same, right? There's guys who are smaller,
yeah,
wirier, skinnier, who make their mark because they're really agile.
yes.
And I think that one of the sad things about being female is that you're only ever encouraged to do anything if you're already thin.
Like, what do you mean?
A woman who's bigger, who's like either like larger, just taller, unless she's, super skinny, a woman who's like fatter, she's not going to get encouraged to do anything. Nobody's going to ever suggest
Really?
anything. Yeah, no, we're totally invisible. I'm 90% invisible because of my weight. It's crazy, but sorry.
See, you're gorgeous.
How is that? Is that
Yeah.
better? I'm wearing a wig just in case you didn't know. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but if women who were actually the ones who are born to be athletes, the tall, the heavy set, the strong women weren't discouraged from being involved in anything from the time they were little, they could actually, I mean, I know women who would have been incredible athletes if they'd ever faced anything but rejection.
It's so weird. I mean, look, I believe every word that you say, but in my high school, which was predominantly Cuban,
Right?
that's not how it was. All of the coaches went straight for the tall girls, the fat girls,
Oh, that's good
and
to
tried
hear.
to recruit them
Yeah,
into
definitely not my
sports.
experience. If when we're playing something that was more like football, then I'm sure that those would be the women that would be
Yeah.
sought after.
But also my high school was so into having women participate in sports. Actually, the whole county in which I lived was
That's a big deal.
that they invented. Now, mind you, it's a Cuban neighborhood. The
Right.
relationship towards the ridiculous and the fashionable is a bit heightened. So we had intramural competitive runway modeling as a sport,
That's hysterical.
and we had boys fighting to get into it.
That's the kind of thing that I love to hear. And that's the kind of thing that your buddy Trump would absolutely hate. Just
I don't think so.
saying.
The man who plays
The man
YMCA when he's in Saudi
the
Arabia.
man who doesn't know that
Let's
YMCA
not.
is a gay anthem.
He knows for sure. No more Donald Trump. So I have a question about pro wrestling, and I
Yeah.
know that you've acted and directed and produced, and you've written screenplays, and that you still write speculative fiction. So when I observe pro wrestlers, one of the things that really dazzles me
Yeah.
is that even though we all know that it's an act, in the actual world of pro wrestling, there's this weird thing going on with amnesia and disassociation where there are moments where the actors who know that they're actors stop acting and they do think it's real.
I don't really know much about that, but
Okay.
I can definitely say that.
Or at least that's how it seems looking from the outside.
I mean, I think that it's probably like any business. There's probably moments where there are true rivalries between people.
Yeah.
But though, and if your rivalry with somebody actually came in line with a scripted rivalry, I'm sure it would take on a heightened sense.
There's also the question of, so I remember reading about the development of the Real Housewives of Orange County, which
Oh yeah,
kind of emerged from the writer's strike. The most popular show at the time was Desperate Housewives. So Bravo jumped on this opportunity.
right. Let's have
It just,
Real Housewives for
it said,
real.
yeah. Now, the previous generation of reality shows were truly scripted, like Jersey Shore.
Right.
There was nothing organic about the storylines, and it really was pure acting. From a production perspective, what made the Real Housewives revolutionary was that not only were there no writers, but the way that the show worked was they had weekly meetings, everyone around a table, and they would say, what's really going on in your life? So the producers, instead of saying, here's an idea, the producers
They were actually
basically,
drawing on the real.
but basically writer's credit goes to the person themselves.
Right. It's interesting.
And so you really tapped into something very powerful and important, because you're absolutely right. Though a lot of those women sincerely hate each other,
Yeah.
and they make sure that it gets played out where everyone can.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, did you ever see the TV show called Unreal? It's fantastic. I think
What
it
is
only
it?
went like two seasons. It's Marty Noxon. So like I think she was involved with like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all sorts of
Okay.
stuff like that. She's a phenomenal creator, but it's like the behind the scenes of a reality show that's basically The Bachelorette.
Is it a narrative show, or is
It's scripted. It's
okay?
entirely scripted. Like
Okay.
it's not reality at all. But the way that they figure it, it's sort of every actor kind of or every character on the show kind of has a producer who's following them and advocating for them, advocating for their storylines. And then it's just all the dysfunction of the Hollywood system
Yeah.
baked into that. Who's trying to get credit, who's trying to build their career, who's trying to get something else started on the side. It's just it's just phenomenal backstabbing, just over the top, like hideous acting. Sorry, people acting in hideous ways towards each other.
Yes. Marshall McLuhan says that when you take a medium and you really push it to its extreme,
Yeah.
like its popularity propels it forward with great velocity, that there's a tipping point where it becomes its own antithesis.
Yeah.
And that's what's the springboard for the next medium.
That's exactly what this.
And you know what I see the current era of non-celebrity as resulting from? So there was a revolution in film and television when actors broke out of the studio system and dissolved it in favor of having their agents. Okay. But then with agencies like Endeavor, the agencies started advising clients on their image, taking 4 of their clients and packaging them into a
Yeah.
TV show. Eventually, Endeavor Content, for an example, which is no longer called Endeavor Content, they started producing shows themselves. And so what happens is, the freelance system was supposed to be the antithesis of the studio system.
Instead,
But
the studio system just shifted
yes,
to the side.
but the massive need for content, due to all of the channels of distribution that we have, pushed the medium to its extreme, such that talent agencies are performing functionally the same exact way that the studios did
Right.
before.
Well, and you've got that split too in Hollywood between actors and managers. So you've got the one who's just getting like obsessed with getting you your next job because that's where their paycheck comes from, and you've got the one who's actually building your career.
Well,
The one who's actually concerned about things like what you could be doing in 5 years' time.
That's the man. Yeah, but I also can't understand, because it's changed so many times. I also have a very difficult time making out the difference between a manager and an agent.
There's a huge difference. Well, that's basically what it is. The agent is definitely focusing on what's going on right now.
It used
There's
to just
definitely
be, and it used to just be, correct me if I'm wrong, it used to just be finding what was out there. But now the job of an agent is more multifaceted because at least half the time it's also about creating things.
I think that that still falls largely to a manager.
Okay, so talk
So
about that.
with the way that I've experienced it anyway, and it could have shifted too. Like it's been a few years since I was.
No, you're right about everything in this subject.
Oh, I don't know for sure, but I'm glad to think that. But yeah, the manager's the one who's going to be encouraging you to create your own project. Manager's the one who's going to be encouraging you to do this project rather than this project, and looking further down the line, and also thinking in terms of where you could be in 5 or 10 years, and is also probably more open to projects that are coming in and being pitched to you. The agent will only be interested in a project that's being pitched to you if there's the money is already attached to it.
Right.
That's been my experience anyway, that the
Yes.
agent is really not interested unless there's a payday, and
Right.
the paydays got to be right there.
Tell me something. Are you working on any film projects now, or are there any that you've recently completed that you want to talk about?
I don't know if I told you, I actually worked 4 days on a short film this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, you told me, but
Yeah,
we didn't have time to talk about it.
yeah.
What I
I was just
what I
PAing on
remember
it,
you
but
saying, so what? I remember that you had a really good experience in some
yeah.
regard. You want to talk about it?
Oh, and it was really fun to be around a small crew. Producer was on set all the time. It was a woman who was the director and who'd written the script. It was a really cool crew because it was actually half men and half women, and there was just no big deal, which is nice because sometimes you feel that somebody's trying to stack the crew, but this was just like a bunch of incredible people who were all really good at their jobs.
Yeah.
Um,
The gender split, so they do a lot of shoots here.
yeah.
I see a lot of them because I come at the time that the last two crews were very 50-50.
Yeah, it's really, and I think Canada's really leading the way in that in a lot of ways. Actually, I don't know what it's like in the States currently. It could have changed a lot too.
Well, I don't know, but I will tell you that I've been in LA twice
Right.
and I love the city, and I was directing someone who was famous at the time. And so, well, she's still famous. It was Jessica Biel.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And she's very easy to work with.
Think so.
It's weird because there are some ways in which she's well, this was so long ago, but she's very, very strong, but she never says no to an idea.
Yeah, that's a kind of strength too, though.
Yeah.
It's a subtler kind of strength.
What's interesting is that it's taken so long for her to be respected as a real actress.
Come on, yeah.
You know why I always felt sorry for her? She wanted to get out of Seventh Heaven, right?
Oh yeah.
And she thought that if she posed topless for some men's magazine that they would because it was a family show, that they
Yeah,
would just
yeah.
get rid of her. And then when she did it, they insisted upon re-upping her
Oh my god.
because
That's
the
hilarious.
ratings went up so much. That poor woman.
That's hilarious.
That
How
poor
about
woman.
backfiring? But that's really all of it. What I'm interested in now is if like it was really an amazing experience to get to see a short film, like a short narrative film, not a particularly commercial project, but that got financed and that got made.
That's always encouraged.
That's just, yeah, it's just like across the board, that just makes me happy. And I'm going to be interested in seeing what I can do with the people that I met through that, what connections I can build on. I'm much more ready than I've ever been to actually follow up.
Short time that I've known you, it's occurred to me that you've become, look, I don't know you very well,
There has been
but
yeah.
you've gotten really aggressive in the most wonderful way. Like, no, I mean, my observation of you, that everything's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I really love about you is I know that you've directed and produced and written, but you took this PA job partially because you just wanted to be around the people.
Yeah.
And that's really old fashioned.
Well, it's funny
And I
'cause
love it.
I might be signing
Love it
with
about you.
might be signing with a talent agent, but the reason that I found the talent agent was because I was considering going back into doing some extra work,
Yeah.
like doing some background performing.
Yes.
Because that's the same thing. It just gets you on set, it gets you meeting people.
Yeah.
You don't know who you're going to meet.
Never.
You never know who you're going to meet. You never know going to know what the circumstances are. I mean, it's not a something that actually spun off into anything, but I mean, we were talking before about gum,
Yes.
and I actually I pulled a bunch of chewing gum out of the hair of Anna Paquin's stunt double for. I mean, that's one degree of separation, I guess. Yeah, so it's you just never know who you're going to meet on set. You never know what you're going to be asked to do. You're never
Oh
going to
my
you don't
God.
know what you're going to learn.
Did I ever tell you that at university, I think I hung out with Sarah Silverman before she was famous?
Oh yeah,
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
that's kind of cool.
But I think so. God, she was funny, whoever it was. Okay, but let's get back to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So you thought you were just going to do backgrounds, but then what? The universe said, "Sorry, honey, we're putting you in speaking roles."
No, so it just ended up being like somebody telling me that that women of my age are actually a sought after demographic for the first time in the history of film. Um, women of my age have typically been unemployable. Is that the polite term for it?
Yeah,
Yeah. So, once you're 25, people are already starting to say, you know what? But
yeah,
that's not the way it is anymore. And hilariously, part of
yeah.
it is being driven by the pharmaceutical companies because they need women.
People anymore.
They just need women of a certain age to be
Yeah,
in all their commercials.
yeah,
Literally, I
yeah.
could be making a living doing nothing but commercials for various kinds of medication where there's the disclaimer running along the bottom of the
Yeah.
screen for it. That could be my career.
I can't believe medication's legal to advertise like that. Um,
Yeah, and cigarettes aren't. What's that?
Cigarettes aren't.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: if you want to smoke yourself to death, go for it.
Just do it away from me. I don't want you to
Exactly.
smoke me to death. Yeah.
Absolutely. So see, there's a little bit of libertarian in you. So
There is.
that's the weird
I
thing about being an artist. You simultaneously tend toward progressivism because
yeah,
if you don't have that trade openness, it's hard to channel the artistic
yeah.
energy. But then at the same time, you end up becoming
You
this
know,
wonderful combination. Like you also have to be a libertarian because you understand the importance of
well,
freedom.
like true progressives do understand the idea of the I can't remember who it is now who said that I've got a right to swing my arms, but my right stops at your nose.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And that's what I believe. Like, I believe that I can do anything I want. It's just that when my pleasure or my desire to do something starts infringing or hurting other people,
Yeah.
that's when it's not even that I have to stop. It's just that there has to be a balance.
Yeah. What has caused this? Oh, there's one more thing that I want to say. So I think that Helen Mirren is partially responsible for the shift in casting that you've because Helen Mirren, I truly believe, especially amongst black men.
Oh yeah. I
Uh,
just know I finished
no,
the sentence.
the adoration of Helen Mirren. Because
That's
when I'm online,
nice.
there are always these black guys talking about how hot Helen Mirren is, and they're like 30 years younger than her. And I
That's
believe so.
hilarious.
Here's what I've heard. If anyone out there can correct me, please do. I'll correct myself on camera. But last year, by a long shot, globally, MILFs were the hottest and most popular search in all of porn.
I am not surprised at all. I definitely glory in that. That's a lovely thing. I do think it's far more the pharmaceutical industry than young black men who like MILFs.
It's a salad bar of causation.
Well, and that's the thing. It's really a smorgasbord of different bodies and different types and different genders, and like that's the way we should be. I think that the idea. I mean, I think you're a fan of fashion. I'm a detractor of fashion. I really hate the concept.
You keep dressing up so nicely.
Well, I'm not dressing for fashion. I'm not dressing for fashion writ large in the big F sense of it. The idea of fashion has always been that you're supposed to dress a certain way.
No,
Certain
that
things are supposed to be are beautiful and certain things aren't beautiful,
no, that's not.
and that you get to turn your nose up at things that you don't like.
No, I do believe in high standards. I do believe in snobbery. I do believe in questing for beauty. However, the way that it manifests in terms of like that's the right thing to wear and that's the wrong thing
Mm.
to wear, that's not fashion.
Yeah, that's
That
what I always hear when people say fashion.
no,
Though.
that's not fashion.
Yeah.
That is a simulation of fashion that's actually quite unfashionable. Because to me, one of the trademarks of a fashionable human being is that they wear something or they wear something in a way that no one else could get away with and that in anyone else's eyes doesn't work. I love the FU nature of real fashion.
Okay, well that sounds good, and I think I probably could like that. But I mean, I'm a person who believes that beauty is lazy. Like loving the concept of beauty in any form is a form of laziness because you're usually
It's one of my
unaware.
it's one of my four most
I
important
know,
traits.
I know, and and a lot of people feel that way. But I feel like something that's interesting is far more important than something that's beautiful.
What? Say it again.
Finding something interesting is more important than finding something beautiful.
I think they're both important.
And if you find something interesting because it's beautiful, that's one thing. But usually, when you find something beautiful, that's kind of the whole game. It's like a one-trick pony.
Give me a minute. Give me a minute. Well, I don't know if this relates at all, but I have noticed that women who are extremely gorgeous and become extremely gorgeous as teenagers, they have a really rough time at life because when they're at their most beautiful, they get away with everything. They don't receive the cultural biofeedback that lets them know how to adapt and develop their personality.
That's true.
And then when they start to lose their looks, they're in hell.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand the world.
I would honestly say that any woman who doesn't go through that has a much harder time because they never had that at
Really?
all. Yeah. Well, because even having everything for a little bit of a time is preferable to never having anything ever.
I don't know about that.
I think that I mean, we're always being asked to feel sorry for beautiful women.
Are we?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big thing.
Wow, we really operate in different circles, don't we?
I mean, among women, we hear it all the time. We're always being asked to like reach out to beautiful women and to make them not feel so bad about the fact that they're beautiful.
All right.
It's ridiculous.
Okay, that's ridiculous.
It's absolutely
that's
ridiculous. Yeah. So when I hear something like what you just said, all I can think is, yeah, that girl at the bank who's absolutely drop dead gorgeous has to fight off men every single day of her life. It doesn't mean that her life is more hellish than somebody who's not that beautiful.
Okay, look, calm down. So that whole perspective that I articulated to you is an observation of my mother's personality development.
That's interesting.
She was,
yeah. Well, I've seen it in many women.
Well, I mean, she's giving Jane Fonda a run for her money in the whole aging in reverse thing.
Wow.
But she was unbelievably gorgeous as in her late teens, early 20s, to the extent that she worked as a house model.
Right.
To the extent and mind you, she's short, so that really is it's almost as shocking as Kate Moss being a runway model because they're the same height. But people would stop her on the street. Even when I was with her, it happened a few times.
Yeah.
People would ask her for her autograph.
Yeah.
Because they thought she was Cher.
Oh, that's amazing.
Or Marlo Thomas.
Funny.
I would say, oh my God, I think I want my mother to see this episode, so I don't know how to say this kindly. Mom, maybe you should go get a snack right now. But when my mother stopped wearing off the shoulder, so my mother had this dress that she wore all the time when I was in high school.
Yeah.
She was really tanned, like Cher tan.
Right.
And it was off the shoulder. And she wore gigantic red earrings and a gigantic red coral necklace. Right. And this gigantic, like the 1980s.
Oh my God.
Hologram.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And it was white. And it was with a white micro mini with the slit. The slip went up. So
okay, my question is, what did she think she was doing with? Like, what did she think she was going to get out of wearing that? I mean, obviously, she just liked dressing like that. What did?
Okay, so
to get.
So I can't show this episode to my mother. My mother was, for lots of different reasons, and I'll respect her privacy and not be specific, but my mother was symbolically and actually rejected in one way or another by her mother, her father, and her siblings.
Right. Okay.
For reasons that were really unfair. I never thought about this until this moment. Wow, I think I'm going to cry. My mother may have been the family scapegoat.
That is something that happens.
I never thought about that. I never thought
yeah.
about that because I never think about pretty people being scapegoats. But then again, she turned me into the scapegoat. So anyway.
Very pretty.
Thank you. You were more ambivalent about that earlier. So, but to bring it all back, my mother to this day melts when she gets a compliment.
Yeah.
She really, like, I have kind of like this. So as a comedian, I have this few performance art attitude towards life. Like, I find molding your personality to work, then your friends, then the people. Yeah. It's exhausting for me. And I kind of believe that in an era of fragmentation and distraction, that we need to I know that it sounds impossible, but we need to start being the same with everyone.
Definitely.
Wherever we go.
That's called integrity, man.
Yeah. My mom doesn't have that. My mom doesn't have a sense of self.
Yeah.
She really lights up so much when people compliment her. And also, whenever I talk to my mom about my career, she's always saying, you have to make people like you, because she doesn't understand in her 70s. She doesn't understand that the nature of social media based content creation is that you want a third of the people to love you, a third of the people to hate you, and a third of the people not caring about you. Like, that's the magic formula as far as I'm concerned. So, She just doesn't get that. But anyway, I want to not talk about my mother anymore. I want to talk about you. And you
Sure.
had commented the second to last time that I saw you that you had wished that we had more time to talk about electroconvulsive therapy.
Yeah, I
So give
did.
me the full Carrie Fisher. What else would you like to say?
So,
Please marry this with the question that I forgot to ask you before, which is what has prompted this radiation of and I mean this in a good way,
yeah.
aggression and drive.
Well, it's I would say it's 100% due to the electroconvulsive
How
therapy.
often do you go?
I did 8 sessions. Sorry, I did 8. I think I did 12 treatments altogether over the course of 6 weeks. So it was
So
2
they
treatments a week. Yeah, no, and it's supposed to be a limited time thing. You're not supposed to be getting it over and over again all the time. A lot of people do go back for. I think they actually called it tune-ups. Yeah. And I'm open to that. It was hard. Like, let's just say it was very hard on my body and hard on my.
How long do you need to recover after a course of treatment?
Well, for the rest of that day, you're not driving, you're not doing
Of
very
course.
much because
But
you were
but
under
after
anesthesia.
that, are you in an altered state afterward?
I was lucky that I didn't have too much of the brain fog, and it
Did you
could
have memory
definitely
loss?
affect. I've lost a couple of memories. I think I was talking about that
I
last
think
time.
memory is better off being lost.
They were just memories that, I mean, there's only one that I know I lost for sure, and it's the only
Okay.
one that kind of bothers me because it's a very specific thing that happened to me that
Right.
I don't remember at all. So just in the terms of that being a little bit disorienting that I did something that I don't remember doing.
Yes.
There's a million things you don't remember doing, but you also don't think about them.
Right.
It doesn't matter that you don't remember. So I was lucky there was not a lot of residual effect from it. I would say that the positive effects happened gradually, built up over the course of a couple of weeks after the ECT.
So
So
you
when
get
I finished
okay.
ECT, I wasn't aware that it had had a positive effect on me at all.
You were asking like, did this do anything?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And it's pretty hard to know that you spent like, 12 days of your life over the course of 6 weeks might have just been spent doing something that was hard on your body and had absolutely no positive effect in the end. But the way that the depression started to lift, I would say it's more like it was receding. It feels like it was tidal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
Uh,
actually does make a lot of sense.
because I don't think that it's gone. I think it's like it's extremely low tide now and it's way, way out there.
Do you
I
think it's
still
good
see it.
do you think it's good for you to conceptualize it that way? Wow, that was
Um,
really Barbara Walters of me. I didn't mean to condescend.
no,
I'm
I've
just,
seen.
does it
I
make you?
just wa-
You know, when I was a kid, I didn't realize what a bitch bar
never really realized it until I saw that interview, and it was just like, oh my god, this little woman is so much more accomplished than you are. Has so many more people that love her. Has done so much more good in the world, and you're treating her like shit.
You know what I wonder? I wonder in 500 years if there will be a cult around Dolly Parton.
I think it should be.
I no, but I genuinely believe it's possible
I think
that of
so
all
too.
the celebrities that you and I know who
Yeah.
are alive in our lifetime, due to the fact that she has a geographical territory that she runs, Dollywood and the surrounding community,
Right.
and
And
her
she's got kids.
yes, and her positivity,
Yeah.
and
And
her
her extreme.
and her supernatural appearance. I do think that it's within the realm of
I think
possibility.
you're
Like
right.
thinking
Well, and her extreme altruism too.
yeah, I think it's very possible that there could actually be a religious cult around her.
I think there's probably of one already.
Yes, because you know what a lot of our anthropologists are talking about now. We've never really, as Americans and as Canadians, we don't recognize the unique traumas, difficulties, and artistic traits of of the people who live in the Appalachian Mountains. And it's almost like
I think it's pronounced Appalachia.
sorry, but sorry.
For your viewers to write in.
I see a possible. I would love to have viewers who would write in. Um, I see the potential for her becoming a goddess of those people, a deity. But anyway, back
It's
to
kind of
you.
beautiful.
Yeah, but back to you.
Yeah.
The reason that I said that was because when you think like that, does it put you in a position where you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop?
Well, that's exactly where I was for the first month or more after.
Okay.
I was waiting for the tide to come back in.
Wait,
But
the
did
good tide or the bad?
the bad tide. I was waiting for the depression to reassert.
Okay.
But
Was it
what that did was made me like actually talk to my psychiatrist about ways that could be the ways that the effects that I'd experience could be solidified or augmented so that I
Okay.
would not have to worry as much. Just so I'm actually on you probably heard of Wellbutrin.
It's my favorite. I would not be here today were it not for
Well,
Wellbutrin.
so I take nortriptyline as my base medication. So I'm actually on an older.
Is that a tricyclic?
Yeah, yeah,
I am so
but it's
jealous.
basically the only thing that has worked for me.
Tricyclics and MAOIs, I think, are poised for a comeback because
The problem is that you have to change your diet, and a lot of people don't want to do that.
you want to, you wouldn't be so well. You
I
look, if you have a psychiatrist who's adept at prescribing tricyclics, you're in very good company.
Yeah, that was actually at the hospital when I
Oh,
was in the hospital last year.
okay.
The nortriptyline was what they decided to try with me, but the Wellbutrin is just in a very small dose as just an augmentation.
Can I tell you something about pharmaceutical history?
Yeah,
I want your opinion of this.
sure.
So, first of all, so in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there were tremendous revolutions within psychiatry, and the two classes of drugs that came to the fore and were stayed there for a long time were barbiturates, which eventually got the approvals were reversed because the side effects were tremendous.
Right.
There were benzos, which, as far as I'm concerned, I think that except in extreme cases, they need to be criminalized, and tricyclics and MAOIs. Then
So you're not a fan of like throwing a benzodiazepine at everything that happens.
Canadian doctors prescribe more benzos per capita than
I'm
any other country.
I was kind of
It's amazing to
yeah.
me. And you want to know something? When
I still have a hoard of Ativan at my house
you,
because I didn't know what to do with it.
so you know what? So when Jordan Peterson first fell out of public eye because he got treatment for benzo addiction, at first I thought it was a little weird, but then I forgot that he's in Toronto. He was in, well, he's not, he's in Arizona now, but he lived in Toronto, which meant that he had a Torontonian doctor, and Torontonian doctors love to push benzos. So then
Right.
all of a sudden I understood. But okay, so
Interesting.
here's what happened. So there's this generation of drugs and they work, but here's the thing about those drugs. They cannot be prescribed by a general practitioner. You absolutely need to be monitored by a psychiatrist. And
Yeah.
it was also the era where psychiatrists view themselves as 50% artist, 50% scientist. And so many of them, including a psychiatrist that I had at one point, they took every new drug when it came out for 3 days.
You were saying this. I think that's just amazing.
It's amazing. It's really, it's like really, it's that type of high risk psychiatry that Freud would engage in
Yeah.
with his coterie. But
Jung obviously went down some interesting rabbit holes where he wanted to see what his brain was doing. And
yeah,
yeah.
and he wrote the Red Notebooks. But okay, so there's these medications, they cannot be prescribed by general practitioners.
Yeah.
So then Wellbutrin's invented, and Wellbutrin, so the next wave of the way that pharmaceutical companies were working is they thought that non-amphetamine stimulants were going to be the next big thing.
Right.
So Wellbutrin was released, and it was only released in its immediate release form. So 6 months after it was released, people all over the place were getting seizures because the max dose now is 450. The max dose used to be 600.
Okay. Oh, and I'm
Well,
taking 25.
25 milligrams?
Yeah.
That's it? I
Because
take
it's
450 milligrams.
because all it is it's just an augmentation.
We use it as an augment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know what else is a great augment? Modafinil. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, no, that was the one that gave me the crash.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
okay. Not
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, no,
Not for you.
it's possible.
No, definitely not.
Maybe under other circumstances,
Sorry.
but yeah.
Sorry. Maybe if you want to work for 3 days straight, like I did. Anyway, so Wellbutrin got all of this negative press in the newspapers and in the television news reports, and it really dampened the spirits of the makers of Wellbutrin because they really thought that they had created a drug that was safe enough to be prescribed by general practitioners.
Right.
So then, while Wellbutrin disappeared because until they worked out the slow release formulations and the new dosage, it was pulled from the market for a little bit. That's when Prozac swept in.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Wellbutrin's really old, but it
so
was
it
reintroduced.
really actually predates.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
And there was the other drug that I'm a big fan of that kind of was like, it intersected with the tail end of the era of tricyclics, sililagene, which was another non-amphetamine stimulant. It's actually a derivative of methamphetamine. It's now used primarily to treat Parkinson's.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But the whole point is I view it as this what if scenario, right? Like what would have happened if instead of SSRIs being the things that general practitioners prescribed, that But you want to know something? I don't know why we're having this conversation. It doesn't matter because both you and I got institutionalized. So we get a different class of doctor.
Too, but we also don't necessarily have, I mean, one of the things is that you do have all these things that only a psychiatrist can do, but you don't necessarily have all that much access to your psychiatrist, which is what happened with me. That
Yeah.
I'm in a position right now where my psychiatrist's assistant sees me every 2 weeks, which is amazing. It's the first time I've really felt that my care is actually actively happening.
Yeah.
As opposed to being,
Checking in when you're really at your worst.
yeah, exactly. But just going back to the idea of the image of current depressive state as being a tide that's receded.
Yeah, please.
I've found a lot of times using images like that is the only way that I've been able to explain
Okay, I
depression
get it.
to anybody. So one of the things that I try to explain when somebody talks about, just you need to think positively, you need to exercise, you need to do this, you need to do that, and try to explain just how, I mean, I can't say it's insulting because I understand that it comes out of ignorance. It comes out of not understanding the difference between feeling sad and being depressed
Well, yeah, that distinction's completely lost on people.
on so many people, and understandably. But so I'll explain that.
Is it understandable? I think we should be a little less tolerant of it moving forward.
I think it's always incumbent on the people who are looking from the outside to be the ones who want to know and do the research to find out why their friend is depressed. I don't think it's necessary. I've always been kind of a person who believes that it's not necessarily up to me as a person with the illness to educate everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's up to a Black person to educate somebody on why what they did was racist. I mean, they're going to have to because they're going to put in that situation. But I think it's sort of incumbent on human beings to be curious enough about how other human beings. But that's another thing. Anyhow, let's not go down that road. But I'll explain to somebody that yeah. So sadness can be like you're a river and the riverbank has gotten shifted. So you're starting to erode a new course. But if you're lucky, there's going to be a spring flood, or there's going to be something that pushes that river back into the proper course.
Yes.
So if you're depressed, that river got displaced, like the way it would if there was an earthquake.
Yeah.
And a split in the actual landscape.
It's irretrievable
or
seemingly irretrievable.
Or it's your river has now worn basically a Grand Canyon down the middle of your landscape, and in order to get the river back to where it was supposed to be, you're going to need some pretty significant intervention. So you're going to need something that's going to jump that river back into the riverbanks.
Yes. Can you believe the extent to which in our culture and society, some people are actually delusional and shallow enough to think that it's possible to avoid occasional sadness?
All I can think in that respect is just how freaking boring that would be. Like,
well, the people who think that tend to be boring.
I used to always describe my depression in terms of geometry. So there's like an x-axis and a y-axis, right?
Okay.
So if you're a normal, healthy person and you've got a sort of healthy emotional life, you should probably be dipping below and coming above. But your baseline is going to be somewhere that's it's median. It's like, it's not happy, it's not sad, it's just it's in a decent place. So if you're on amphetamines all the time, you're like up here.
Yeah.
You're vibrating it. Your baseline is so heightened that it can't even see where normal is.
Yeah.
But if you're depressed, your baseline gets shifted below.
Yes.
Some people who would have more of a psychosis might actually experience, they're actually jumping up above.
You mean like a psychotic depression?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, or like bipolar illness can actually take you like way above and way below, so that you actually have, yeah. So with me, for so many years, the difference between my happiness and my sadness was very, very small. And my baseline was way below normal. So if I kind of explain it that way, I think it gets across.
Yeah, I think the XY axis is really, that's wonderful. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think it helps. And I think anybody who thinks about how they feel and how their emotions are in the extremes, and how often they go to those extremes and how often they're close to the baseline, can get an idea of where their chart would lie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've interrupted you so many times that I still don't think that you've had an opportunity to answer the question. I have a long way to go as an interviewer. Sorry. I'm really sorry.
Or maybe not. Maybe this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing.
That's very Pema Chodron of you. Just, zero in, I promise not to interrupt, hone in on how the ECT made possible your recent aggressiveness and drive.
I was not able to be myself prior to the ECT.
What were you able to be?
I wasn't able to be anything. I wasn't able to.
Did you feel like a hollow husk?
I felt like somebody who was not in the driver's seat. Never felt like I'm really in the driver's seat of my own life.
Oh.
I've always felt that any force from outside of me could push me in any direction, and that I've always described my depression as no is the only power I have. So the only thing I could ever do was to stop something from happening if I didn't want it to happen.
Did you have a terror of saying yes to things?
I said yes to everything.
Wait a minute. I thought you just said that no was your only power.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The only time I exercised a power wasn't in saying yes wasn't saying yes. I think in the way that you're talking about it too is actually a failure of assertion.
Got it.
To say yes to everything is not necessarily like to say yes to everything should be something that's empowering. To say yes to everything because you can't say no is robs you of all the personal power that you have.
Would it say that it deprived you of a sense of agency?
Well, I had very little sense of agency, and that's despite the fact that I did a lot of things. So, despite the fact that from the outside, somebody could look at me and say that I've achieved this, I've pushed myself to do that. At a very basic level, it felt like I was going along with a lot of things, and that there's actually somebody actually scribbled Jen on this table. It actually says James.
Let's just say it says Jen.
Being able to resist other people's desire for me to do something has been very difficult because I don't feel like I have any right to say no to people. So when I do say no, that's me exercising my superpower,
Yes. Okay.
if that makes sense.
It does. So how does it feel now to be you?
Well, this is a day when I'm actually having, I would say, a relapse into the depression. So on a day like today, I don't feel like a person. I don't feel like I exist. I don't feel like the world is real. I don't feel like it matters what I
Are
do.
you depersonalizing? Do you realize?
Really, yeah. And I depersonalize and I disassociate as well,
Right.
but I don't do that all the time.
Right.
Um,
Is the depersonalization, derealization, and dissociation partially as a result of the awareness and the experience of being at a higher baseline as a result of the ECT?
no, this is the way that I was when I was depressed.
got it.
Yeah, yeah, and especially in the last, like I would say, the distracting internal dialogue that was coming from somebody that wasn't me, but not like a voice like you would have if you were actually having a psychotic break.
Right.
But just the self-talk. So if you can just imagine everything that I said to myself was you should fill in the blank. And there was when I was very depressed, there was no ability for me to just do something. I would have to form the idea of doing something, tell myself that I should do it, and then fight with myself until I was actually able to do it. And I'm fighting against forces that are far stronger than I am, so that every time I actually managed to do something, it was a big achievement. But the problem was that I was always doing things that I thought I should do, never doing things that I actually wanted to do or felt like doing, because that was just not a part of my emotional makeup. Like there's nothing in me that says you want to do this.
Yes.
All I had was this kind of idea of myself that I thought that if I kept doing certain things, then I would become the person that I was meant to be. But I was still cut off from any ability to actually experience what it was like to be that person, even when I was doing I wrote a poem called, I am now the thing I once pretended to be, which is kind of where I feel like I'm at now. I'm actually the person that I was always pretending to be, that other people probably thought I actually was, but that I couldn't actually experience being in any real sense of the word.
Yes.
Yeah. It seems very twisted, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
So here's the thing. I've been depressed. I've been anxious. I'm currently bipolar. I'm currently living my life and being medicated in such a way that I know damn well when I'm going up or down.
Wow.
And I can push myself through it because I'm old enough to know that it's temporary. It's not pleasant. It's not easy. I wish it wasn't this way. But for now, my bipolar disorder is not getting in my way, but it does make life much harder. The reason that I'm
Yeah.
saying all of this is I don't see the world and I don't have the relationship with the voice in my head the same exact way that you do.
Mm.
But there are enough similarities, especially with the simulation of self for the sake of others and the depersonalization, derealization, dissociation, which, the first two happened organically for me starting at the age of 17. The dissociation happened. And I actually don't know if it's dissociation or vibrating into a different vibrational dimension.
Right.
The whole point is there are enough similar circumstances that I really do get the tumult and the difficulty of it. I'm never going to feel some of the things that you felt.
Yeah, but you understand that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would say that the the early the earliest phase of my depression um was characterized by living a double life. It was characterized by thinking one thing and doing another thing constantly. Constantly, every moment of life was something to be got through. It was something to be.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you been through that? So I think and I think then the way that my depression ended up being was just a result of that amount of stress, that amount of constant wariness, constantly being on guard, constantly holding myself back from saying something that was going to get me into trouble, self-policing. Yeah.
Does it ever feel to you like, I hope Riverside notices dead time and cuts it out. Thank you, AI. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. We need to take a break for a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode of the SPS podcast has not been brought to you by Riverside because I'm currently so obscure that no one knows that I exist. On the other hand, I am such a big fan of Riverside FM, having tried all of the other podcasting production software available to us here in Canada and the United States, that I would be more than happy to show for you incessantly and adorably.
You hear that, Riverside?
Yes. Yeah, hire me.
Certainly hope your AI is watching for people who might be possible shills.
Yes. Yes. We'd both be perfect. Okay. So back. So
I'm trying not to do origami.
ever feel do origami.
Doing origami.
Hey, what's the ancient Italian art of what's the ancient Italian? Okay.
It's got gory on the end of it, doesn't it?
No, I screwed up the joke. So origami is the ancient Japanese art of paper folding.
Yes.
Oregano is the ancient Italian art of pizza folding.
That's cute. That's kind of a dad joke.
It is. It is. It's my favorite dad joke. Okay.
I told you mine, right?
No.
I did the one-handed man cross the road
Why?
to get to the secondhand store.
That's so good.
Thank you.
That's so good.
Thank you.
Okay, so my question for you is:
it's
does it ever feel like you have self-awareness, like you have awareness of your own self, but you're operating inside of a body that's being driven by a second personality who doesn't like you?
Yeah, not driven by a second personality of my own, being driven by by another person.
It feels externalized.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and that's honestly where I'm at today. That's why I'm feeling wrong today. I feel like the actions I'm going through are not necessarily the ones that I'm choosing. They're the ones that are being chosen for me.
Yeah. My advice is that you have a camera on you at all times and you use it to your advantage.
It's actually, there's probably something to that.
Okay, so question for you, and you don't have to answer this because it's really, really personal. So when you podcast with me, okay, let me preface by saying that the Kardashians are really amazing at being themselves on camera.
Absolutely.
Okay,
They're absolutely without guile.
And one of the reasons why I think they work so well, and I am not an anti-Kardashian person, they really, 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 really ignore the camera.
Yeah.
Okay. There are other reality stars who act, but I don't see that in them. And I think that the main reason why is that when they were little girls and their father was a lawyer and they went to the O.J. Simpson trial, there were all these bomb threats and security guards and everything. And the only time that they felt safe is when they were inside this ring of paparazzi.
Well, that's interesting.
So that's how I explain the psychology of it. It's like the camera actually brings comfort. Now transitioning to you.
Yeah.
Does performing or being in front of a camera ameliorate, worsen, or have no effect on this feeling of internal alienation?
I honestly don't know because I'm always up to perform. Like, let's just put it that way. That's always something that I feel like is kind of like a baseline for me.
So you made a really good career choice.
Well, I mean, the career choice kind of chose me.
Got it.
Performing and being in front of people has always been something that I've thought was just part of what I'm going to do with my life, part of who I am, part of how I behave. So it's always been something that felt natural to do. I can't say I've always been natural on film.
They're two totally different things.
Yeah. Well, and there's getting used to being in the eye of the camera there, and there's also getting good at knowing how to be in the eye of the camera.
Right.
So there's that there's that wonderful thing of being so aware of something that you can forget about it. So I feel like I'm getting better all the time. I think I'm still learning a lot of techniques. I'm hoping to be taking an audition class for auditioning for film and commercials. And I'm really curious to find out what they can teach me, because it's hard to, without constantly examining yourself on film, it's hard to know exactly how you're coming across. I actually did you would have loved this. I did a really cool acting class once as part of the Fringe. It was part of the, like, one of the exercises we did was to just walk around the room and to greet everybody just as yourself. And then one of us was supposed to be a murderer. So we were supposed to guess who was the murderer based on our interactions with everybody else. But that was far less important than just getting everybody's impression of how you come across. Because you can think that you're a leading person, like you can think that you're a leading man, leading woman. You can think that you come across as open and friendly. You can think you can come across as being a little shady or whatever, but actually hearing from other people how you come across is fascinating.
Yes.
So everybody thought that I was a murderer, and I wasn't. Everybody had the impression of me as being a little bit sly, a little bit guarded, and a little bit over friendly, like I was hiding something.
I don't know what you expect me to do with that information.
It was just fascinating because,
That's really interesting.
but
Was it devastating to you to hear that?
it
Or
was,
did it sound spot on? Or like,
it was kind of, for me, it was like, this is a moment in time.
right,
Um, and I'm curious to know what the next group of people are going to think.
right.
And I'm curious to know what can happen if I shift things, because I know that those things, for me at least, I don't think those things are set in stone. I don't think that it's set in stone that
No,
everybody's going to feel like that about
it's
me.
it's quite liquid.
I think there's other people. I think there are people who really have one way that they come across to people, and it's the only way that they can come across to people. And every time you meet them, it's exactly, you feel like they're exactly the same person.
And
I don't feel like I'm like that. I feel like there's always a mixture of things happening in me, and they can come across a whole bunch of different ways.
you know, I have an observation Jim,
Mm.
about people who are really successful, like for example, real estate influencers on Instagram.
Right?
And people either love them or they criticize them. And when they criticize them,
Call.
the criticism is always self-involved and phony.
Yeah.
But what I'm starting to realize is
Sorry,
that,
you just got me thinking it's Property Brothers, right?
okay,
Everyone's got an opinion on the Property Brothers. Do you know the Property Brothers?
vaguely, I think one of them is married to someone I'm really into, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm starting to realize is that success comes from creating and causing yourself in such a way that to people who haven't taken that on for themselves, I don't see how it occurs any other way than phoning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I personally, I want you to tell me if you think this is healthy or not. I really long for the day where when I walk into a room, except for the rare occasion, maybe once every 2 years, where I'm furious and people know it because I want people to be afraid of me because that's the only way to get myself out of that situation.
Right.
Okay, but that's the rare exception. But in general, I want people to always feel the same way about me when I walk into a room.
Right.
I want that. I mean, of course, it's because I'm controlling and dominating, but it's also because it would give me such ease. Right now, I know exactly what it is. Yeah. It's sexy, charismatic, funny, unusually mischievously open, and a little unknowable.
Well, that's a tall laundry list.
That's what I want.
I think that's exactly my list too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Can I tell you
Oh, and
something?
brilliant, of course. Don't forget brilliant.
Oh my God, of course.
Yeah, that just goes without saying, right?
That's not on my list. That's already happening. So I live at the YMCA, and there's about 40 rooms per floor, and there's 4 floors of residence.
Wow.
So
It's a lot of dudes stack up together.
it is, and I am lucky enough to live. So the second floor is really bad. Like you open up the elevator and you can smell crack.
Really?
The third floor, people are just starting to move in, but people on the third floor are going to be in an incubator program where like you only get assigned there if you were in the shelter system or some other system and you were really, really well behaved.
Okay.
And,
It's like the reward
and the
space.
goal is to get you working with your own place in 6 months to a year.
Okay.
Because I think that in countries like Finland, they have found that the best way to end homelessness is to stop it with this, let's just give you a meal, that you actually over time spend less money if you have this really radical year-long intervention that's super aggressive.
Right.
Okay, so the fourth floor.
Well, it takes so long to overcome the effects of trauma that that seems like the only way that you possibly could do it.
I think
You've got to have enough stability to not continually be.
yeah, but I also think you need to have something outside of you that's bigger than you, that's guiding you because you've lost your internal
Yeah.
navigational system. And I guess for some people it can be religion, but some people aren't religious, and that's just how it is. And so I normally would be scared of a program like this, but the people running it, because I don't like social workers, the people running it are really good.
That's
So
cool.
so
That's
I
cool.
have confidence about that. And so the fourth floor is it's not great. I'm on the fifth floor. It's the cleanest. It smells the nicest. The men are the most respectful. A lot of us work. I think that there's value in nodding or saying hello or how are you to every single person that you see all the time, even if you've seen them 10 other times. And when I do it, some people appreciate it. Other people, I think, are freaked out that I've said hello to them for the 10th time because they're more into
Yeah.
subculture of let's just ignore each other.
Right. Right.
And one of the reasons that I hate doing it, even though I do it because I think it's the thing to do, it makes more than anything else in my life, it makes me aware of how uneven my mood is because I could
Oh, it's interesting.
I could go to the restroom at 7 a.m. and I've just woken up. So like I think that I might occur as like it's like a fuck you of a hello. And then it like I tend to reach my high point around siesta time, like 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
Right.
And so then I'm like, I'm probably too cheerful.
Right.
And then I kind of come down around 9 p.m. to the barely acknowledged acknowledgement.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
And, and saying hello 100 times a day to the same crew of guys reminds me that I'm far from integrated. And I know that the level of integration that I want is
Right.
absolutely unrealistic. And I don't care. I want it anyway.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I spend so much of my time utterly alone, like cross paths with my cat. But most of my life, I've spent 90% of my time alone.
Same here.
Yeah. And it's a strange thing when I'm in a position where I can't spend that time alone.
What do you think is better, having lots of friends who are bad for you and set bad examples, or having no one?
It depends if those friends that are bad for you actually get you into situations that are good for you,
They
because that is possible.
That's a really interesting point, but give me a hypothetical or a real.
Well, say you're with say you've got friends that are just like real partiers and they're substance users, and you don't want to be necessarily drinking and shooting up and doing everything like that, but they also have gotten you into a club scene where suddenly you're in touch with people that can put you on stage.
Damn, that's wow. That is a really wild situation, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, because I mean, I look at David Bowie. I think um, he put himself, or he ended up in situations where he was surrounded by other musicians, artists, prettiers. Like 90% of
He
the
used to be one of them.
yeah, and I'm sure that 90% of the people he's around are still partiers. But he was also putting himself in with the people that were going to be his guitar player when he was up on stage, putting with the person who was going to promote his show, putting with him with the person who was going to come to like the people who were going to come to see his show because they enjoyed him just hanging out.
Yeah, it's interesting because once he reached a level of celebrity and once he became an icon and he found the love of his life, he really did a great job of like saying like he shut that door hard. He shut that door hard.
And then he also had access to all the people that were the ones that were important, like he could still go back and play guitar with this guy.
Yeah.
He could still get this person to come up and do backing vocals for him on the
Yeah.
track. He could still meet a bunch of musicians just randomly and decide to do a whole album Tin Machine with them and like then do a second one.
You want to hear something funny? I never thought about this, but I've been celibate and not taking anything on, and like every 3 months there's something else.
It's funny to you that celibate also sounds like you're going to sell a bit.
I am selling a bit.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, but but I've fallen off the wagon for one day 3 times. And but like the thing is, I'm really happy that my monasticism, once I surrendered to that impulse, it did not take long for me to be like, this isn't me anymore.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
But I also, the 3 months that I was working at a comedy venue full time,
Right.
I've never thought about this. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I drank every night that I worked.
Right.
because I was always being offered drinks and I never wanted my employer to not be making the money. So I always said yes.
You just got to learn how to do it like the strippers do.
Yeah, someone told me that afterward.
Yeah,
But you want to know
drink
something?
you drink a lot of grape juice in the
Yes. Or here on a Sunday we had a whole thing today about the gluten-free individually wrapped communion wafers. On the outside of the box, it says not suitable for Catholics. Can you believe it?
That's hilarious.
And the joke that I made was, could I have a box of those because I want to make myself a nice charcuterie plate? Taxes anyway. Okay. So, but the moment that I stopped drinking for professional reasons was the moment I got fed up with everybody around me because I just the alcohol had made it so much easier to deal with people that I otherwise would have found annoying.
Right, right. Yeah, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Well, and for me, it was always just the waste of time. It was like, yeah, I'm actually having a good time, but I don't want to do this every day. And there's a real same old after a while. You realize you were literally doing the same thing every single day, and you're spending money that you not can't necessarily.
Okay, so where do our friends get the money? Like, do they have trust funds or something?
Like that really confuses me. Like I don't have any idea how I could be a drug
Well, they
addict.
certainly don't spend any money on clothes. They all dress terribly.
Yeah, but I don't spend money on clothes either. It's not like I've got enough money.
But that's what I'm saying. I bought my wardrobe from Temu when I got a Trillium. Like I spent my entire Trillium rebate on a wardrobe, and I have not bought a single item of clothing since.
Well, I bought a new wardrobe for $40 at Value Village.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
You know that they sell used men's underwear.
I think that's adorable. But you know what that is though. That's just the underwear that you get for Christmas that you really didn't want. You just pass it on. Like,
After you've worn it 3 times.
yeah.
You brought up some great points. So listen, I think this has been such a fun episode. Have I made you feel better or worse?
Much better, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank God.
I'm.
You know, it's a big responsibility to be running a podcast where like the person walks in and they're like,
I'm.
Stop it. Okay. Is there anything that I could say to you that would not be irritatingly positive and naive and condescending?
I wish you could say something that was like that.
Here's
See, now,
So here's the thing. Okay, so I'm going to say this because we have to wrap up. So I'm going to say this about you. I've been exposed to many of your artworks.
okay.
Okay, you're genuinely good.
Thank you.
And you have a range of styles that I think the occupational look hazard that comes with being who you are artistically is that you're channeling so much from the universe that it must be that I can imagine that the mental health consequences must be enormous. If there's anything that I could say to be helpful, and you may think this is stupid, and I don't know if I should be saying this on camera, but if it is for you how it is, when you're focused on the impact on you, maybe it would balance it out to focus upon the wonderful impact that you have on people who are lucky enough to enjoy your art.
That's beautiful. So you said something earlier, actually, that I wouldn't mind just circling back to before I think we're getting close to wrapping up.
Yeah. By the way, the last thing that's going to happen on this podcast is you're going to talk about your Fringe show.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, cool. Now I don't remember what I was thinking. You're talking about, yeah. So you were talking about talking into the camera.
Yes.
As almost a as almost a therapy or as something that's necessary. I feel like one of the things that stands in my way most is that I feel like I am inaudible. Like I feel like I cannot be heard. And yeah, I know it's not rational. I feel like my voice is quiet.
Your voice is great.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you. But there's part of me that has thought that I'm supposed to be like live streaming more and talking to the camera more and sharing more. And because the thing that I want to separate me from a lot of other creators is that I actually share the things I create. Because I think it's a lot of times people are tempted to talk about what they're doing, but not actually share the results of what they're doing. They don't actually share the finished work. Because how many friends do I have that write songs, and how many of those songs have I actually heard?
Right.
Any? So I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person that says I'm writing songs or says I'm writing poems and doesn't share the poems and songs.
Yes.
So do you think it's worth pushing myself to get on camera more and just share things?
What I think have you watched our episodes?
Yeah.
Okay, so how are you not impressed by yourself in your appearance?
I love them. really
Be with
enjoy them.
yourself. Watch them more because that's who you are, damn it.
Yeah, but if I come back, it's just still, I think it's still one view, isn't it?
Okay,
Like,
so here's the thing.
I don't do enough for
So,
your demographics, for your counts, for your.
so here's the thing. ChatGPT agrees that my strategy of doing a first season with no promotion, then taking a month off so I can re-edit the episodes, turn them into reels, do all of that, and then like the day after putting all of that stuff out there on 6 different platforms, then start season 2 is actually a better strategy than promoting up front.
Oh, that's
Because if you try to promote up front, this is what ChatGPT told me with YouTube and all of the other platforms, except for one that I'm not going to mention, it won't bring you up in the algorithm because what it thrives upon is their confidence that there's something else of yours that you can send them to.
right. So they want to be able to go from episode 1 to episode 2.
So if you do a first season that you don't promote, it's going to make your season 2 bigger than your season 1 would have been with promotion.
That's great. That makes total sense.
It's also, and since you're also, since it's also the first season is always when you're learning,
Yeah.
it's probably good that it gets released all at once. But look, here's the thing. And then we have to wrap it up with Fringe because people are coming and there's all sorts of magic. Fun fact, Riverside is going to use AI to fix our eye contact and take out all of the ums and ahs. If only I could adjust saturation with it, it would be perfect. So here's the thing. I want you to do more episodes with me.
Cool.
When it comes time to invite you to be a season 2 co-host, I hope you'll say yes. I don't want to have that conversation right now. But like when season 1 is over, on the times that we would normally be podcasting together, experiment with all of the platforms and try something different on each one. Because you really are great on camera. I mean, as yourself,
you.
not as an actress.
Thank you.
Are you into being called actor or actress?
It doesn't really matter. There's a certain power in doubling down on actress, but I do like the gender neutral ones too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I have to be in favor of the feminine variations for professions because I'm a huge fan of the word ediatrix.
Ooh, that's a great word.
For editor?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. We need to wrap it up. Tell us about your show at the Fringe Festival.
So,
what's it called? When's it happening?
So
where is it?
It's going to be middle of July in Hamilton. It's called The Fortune Teller. I play the fortune teller. Her name's Anita. What? Do you know this play? What?
When you were telling your story about going to the casting agency, the entire time you were telling it, I was stopping myself from interrupting you because what I wanted to say was you would make the world's best fortune teller. My God.
Okay, quick story. When I was at Christian camp back in the 2020s or whenever the 1920s, whenever it was, million years ago. So we were doing a carnival. My cabin was assigned to be the fortune telling cabin, and I was assigned to be the fortune teller. So I started off by like taking people's hands, and then I would say, "This is your jellyfish line. It means you will see a jellyfish at some point in your life." And then it just occurred to me that it would be interesting to just say, look at the person and kind of think about something about myself that was kind of hidden that I didn't like to talk about, but that they might be able to relate to,
right,
and tell them it was true about them. So, you spend a lot of your time imagining yourself in situations that are like fantasies, and the fantasies are actually more important to you than real life.
Wait a minute. How did you know that?
But I did this to everybody in camp. By the end of the week, I'd done this to everybody in camp, and everybody.
So what I'm hearing is that you are a fortune teller.
Yeah. That was my experience with being a fortune teller. So the Fringe show is called Fortune Teller. It's four-hander. It's a really cute play. It starts off with my niece arriving and saying, "Mother says I have to live with you now," and it just goes from there with a lot of fighting between the aunt and the niece, and then the guy who comes in, who's the client, who wants to find out if his dead wife minds if he's dating again.
And how do people get tickets?
Through the Fringe website. So I think it's like FTCO or something like that. But you can just search for Hamilton Fringe.
Yeah, everyone, go to Brave. Brave is my favorite search engine. Go to your favorite browser and search engine and type in Fringe Festival, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Yeah. I don't think the schedule is up for the individual shows yet.
It's not up yet, but bookmark.
But yes, bookmark it and come back and get buy yourself a Fringe pack, and then you can just go see a bunch of stuff.
Don't promote everybody else.
Okay,
just focus on you.
But come to ours for sure.
Oh my God. This has been such a great episode. Thank you so much. I'm so honored and delighted that you've come back.
Really
Do you
fun.
like being an official co-host? Hold on a minute.
I love it.